Hello, 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 and welcome to the Wonder of Stuff Vodcast number 5050. This is the Vodcast that's broadcast live on Google Hangouts on air every weekend. It's the place you'll find news, information, and commentary on science, engineering, and technology, and anything from the past week beyond, and anything else interests us from inside our tiny little human brains. Now, it's just another double header this week with myself and Richard. And Richard is here. Hello, Richard.
Hello.
Hello. Right. So Ross is off again. Got tied up with work. He promises us this is his last week that he'll be tied up with work, and he'll be back with us next week on episode 51. So anyway, without further ado, we'll get kicked straight on to this episode, and I'm going to start with a topic which has always interested me, actually, and it's always interested me specifically because we're from the United Kingdom and we're an island, and water is one of our staples as a human race, or as any sort of animal, and getting that water and cleaning that water and having a constant supply, a safe supply, is very important for the world. Now, desalination is the topic. Now, desalination is very simply, it's the process that removes salts and minerals from saline water. Obviously, the most obvious saline water would be the sea, but it doesn't have to be. There's other things that have the other waters that have saltiness in them. It's used on ships, submarines. It's even used on the International Space Station, obviously, because they can't get a new supply of water. It's also used in a lot of island nations to get a clean water supply. Gibraltar, for instance, Gibraltar's main water supply is all desalinated water. It's particularly relevant in dry countries as well, such as Australia. So,
the Middle East,
Middle East,
Saudi Arabia and Singapore are very reliant on it, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. So, the reason why it's not so used, because I also used to think, well, why don't we use it? Because, we are an island, we're surrounded by water. But I think the main reason is because it takes a high energy consumption to get this desalination process to work, and it's just the cost that makes it right at the end of the pile. So they all obviously go through the standard procedure of collecting it from hills. I mean, the good thing about it is we've got a lot of hills, especially in the north of England and in Scotland. We've got a lot of hills, so rain will naturally come down, and we'll build dams and whatever to get that water supply. Now, there are three main methods of desalination of water. The first one is a thermal method, so a thermal distillation. And this is where the water is boiled in big vats, and the steam is collected, and that's siphoned off, and that's your clean water, and the salt is left behind in some sort of filtering mechanism. The vaporization process does require a significant amount of energy, although there are modern methods of distillation that make it slightly more energy efficient, and then they use low pressure vessels to reduce the boiling temperature of water and reduce the amount of energy required to desalinate. The other one is electric desalination. That's where you pass an electric current, and this is used to drive ions through like a semi-permeable membrane, and the ions stick, positive, negative ions stick to the salt, and the salt is carried into these membranes, and the water carries on through.
Oh, right. So it filters it essentially then.
It does essentially. It's a filtering mechanism. Again, energy requirement depends on and it also depends on how efficient it is. Depends on how much salt is in the water. So this tends to preclude. This method tends to preclude it from something like a sea. Desalination of seawater, and then there's finally I'm pretty sure this is the one that they use in Gibraltar and possibly the other Arab nations, and this is reverse osmosis, where its pressure is used to drive the water through, again, a semi-permeable or selectively permeable membrane, and it leaves the salt behind. Same type of thing, but a different way of doing it. So that's been, up until now, the three most popular methods, and all of the other ones are based around those three types of ways of getting the salt out and the pure water through. However, there's a new process now. The Massachusetts Institute of Technology have come up with a project that does not separate the ions from the water molecules, and it doesn't use filters, it doesn't use membranes. It actually uses an electrically generated shock wave within a flow of water, which basically pushes salty water on one side and clean water on the other side. And it separates the two streams. It's called shock electrodialysis. Now, I've got an image. Hopefully this describes the whole process to you. So what happens here is, you'll see the salt water comes in here. It flows through a porous material. In this case, it's called a frit, this material, and it's made of glass particles, tiny glass particles. And there's a membrane at each side. I'm guessing that it's what they call in the CEM. This is the membrane at each side. And what happens is, when there's an electric current flowing, and I guess this is the E bit here, the salty water, essentially the porous, so the membranes or the electrodes sandwiching the porous material on each side, the electron current flows through the system, and the salty water divides into regions where the salt concentration is either depleted or enriched. So you'll see the briny solution goes out one way and the fresh water goes out the other way. So all it needs, so basically it's like a parting of the ways. So it's salted water comes in, brine solution goes one way, freshwater solution goes one way. And when the current is increased, you get this shock wave, which does that split down here.
All right. And presumably you can, a bit like the distillation process, you just repeat it if you want to refine it even further.
Yeah, I presume what you can do is you can take the briny solution again, make that the salt water, and push it through again.
Yeah.
And I think you can do that until it's...
Or likewise put the fresh through if you need it even fresher.
Yeah, or something like that. Yeah, so you could probably do it that both ways again, or you have it in multiple sections. That's just going through. Now, what happens is that the reason why this is different is because the water is not getting pushed through a filter or a membrane or anything. There are membranes at either side, this CEM thing, but it passes by. It doesn't pass through, and that's something unique that this system has. Now, so the water just the part and the move to the actual salty bits stick to the side. So although this method isn't as cheap to build currently as the current desalination processes, so the reverse osmosis, the electric or the thermal, it has a couple of benefits at the moment that the other ones don't have. They reckon it can be used in cleaning wastewater from when you do something like fracking, because because the fracked water that gets shoved down there's obviously chemicals in there as well as salt water.
Yeah.
And this process can actually take out the chemicals as well.
Yeah.
So if you have trace amounts of toxic ions, this could also clear it. So this method is desirable in not just desalination, but actually taking out some toxic chemicals.
Yeah. It's probably worth saying as well that of the fresh water, because fresh water has less than 2.5% of all water, so within that, only 0.3% of that is in rivers and lakes. So it's
Absolutely.
Available fresh water is surprisingly scarce, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and it is obviously going to get more and more scarce and more and more of a problem. Just as we've talked before about food across the world, but water is in many respects more important than food.
Yeah.
You can go a lot longer with just having water than you can with
I'm just looking at a graphic here that says of the fresh water, so 2.5% of the water is fresh, and of that, 30.8% is locked up in groundwater, and 69% is locked up in glaciers and permanent snow cover. So you're left with 0.3% on all other sources. So
And
it's
that's
tiny.
where you've got to get your drinking water from.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's 0.3% of the 2.5%.
It's interesting as well because I think the Falkland Islands do this as well
Right.
with as well as Gibraltar, and it's basically any place that you can't get a feed of water through, or it's particularly dry. Because although that you would think that the Falkland Islands is quite a wet place, it's not particularly wet.
Yeah.
It's very windy and it's quite harsh at some times, but it's not
If they
particularly damp.
don't have a decent sized lake or river, you're knackered, aren't you, for storing it? That's
That
it.
is the way that Gibraltar does it is that they've got basically a huge well a huge reservoir in the Rock of Gibraltar,
Right.
so it's actually in the centre.
Also, is it right when you were saying Gibraltar? I thought it was just like an interesting place to try it out where it was. So they actually have a problem with getting water.
Yeah,
Did the
yeah,
Spanish
because
not just let them have some?
they can't get it from Spain because there's big issues with Spain.
Right. You would have
There's
thought they would
obviously
at least be able to deal with a private company and get some somehow or something.
no, well, no, because basically it's Gibraltar. Then they're attached to Spain. Spain have had a long-term, debate about all sorts of things. I mean, it took them ages to get their own country code on the International Telecommunications Union for Gibraltar because
Yeah.
Spain wouldn't allow it.
What about
So
could they not get something? Well, I suppose North Africa's probably not in much of a better position really for water, is it?
no, well, I mean that, but then of course you'd have to get pipes underneath
Yeah.
the Straits of Gibraltar. So they obviously want to be as self-sufficient as they can be. So if they do get cut off,
Yeah.
they're relatively
For its strategic importance.
yeah, yeah. Well, absolutely, because of the fact that they've got a military base there, they've got a naval base there, and for their strategic importance with the Straits of Gibraltar, the top of Africa, and they're in a prime position for the Middle East. So,
Yeah.
they need to, and what they used to do, I think, what they used to do in the sort of the early 20th century was they used to have like stream sort of like aqueducts and stuff to pump water around, but it just as the population grew, that was just not feasible to expand that anymore.
Right.
And so that is it is one of the few places that I know, and the reason why I chose Gibraltar is because I knew that they had a desalination plant, and on further reason I realized that something like really high, like 95% of all their water is from there,
Right.
drinking water. They have another method for getting sort of like sanitary water for toilets flushing. It comes from a separate system. So I presume that each house would have two pipes: the drinking water and the sanitary water. So, and again, Gibraltar, Falklands is very similar. They've got, I think what they do, the way that the Falklands do it is that they've got their power stations is, I mean, they've got a lot of wind stuff in now, but up until very fairly recently, they had big a power station which was just a load of diesel generators, and they took the heat generated at the exhaust.
Right. Just use that.
To use that to do the desalination.
To do the evaporation approach.
Yeah, absolutely. But the benefit, another benefit of this method is that they reckon that because they're passing an electrical current through, it's possibly also going to be able to kill the bacteria as well.
All right.
So
you can see how just even with low pressure chambers and all that, how energetic it must be to evaporate water on a large scale. It must use a tremendous amount of energy.
It's true, and that's because it's always intrigued me because it just seems an obvious choice for an island like us, but we've got so much better, so much better ways of getting this water at the moment. I mean, obviously they have patches of drought, but it's nowhere near what Australia's exhibiting. They have many years of absolute no rain whatsoever in certain parts of Australia.
I wonder if it mustn't be practical, but I was just thinking, obviously you have we've talked before about solar energy and obviously collecting the light aspect of that. I wonder if anyone's gone to any lengths to try and collect the thermal properties of that. Do you know what I mean? Using the the sun's heat to warm up water. I wonder what it mustn't be
Well, they
practical
do,
that way.
don't they? I mean, there's a number of companies in this country who do, before photovoltaic cells, that used to have a series of pipes that they used to put on the roof,
Right.
and that would heat. But that actually has to be sun heat,
Yeah. Yeah.
rather than just a certain amount of light.
Yeah.
So, and that basically would feed into the top of a boiler, and raise the sort of temperature of the water. So you would still have to heat some of the water, but it would keep the energy cost would be lower because
Yeah.
you already have a higher temperature.
Just to give you that extra few percentages.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a company called Solar Twin. I remember this in the sort of early part of the 21st century who were advertising that, and this was long before photovoltaics started appearing on everybody's roofs. But I think it takes even longer for those type of to pay themselves off than it will photovoltaics. And now that China are producing photovoltaic cells at a much cheaper price, I don't know whether those things are economic anymore really.
Right.
But there are people doing it. I remember seeing advertising and I used to get a magazine called Ethical Consumer. And they used to always advertise in there. Of course, that and photovoltaics depends on what's the orientation of your house.
Yeah.
And we're just not. We're just not in the right position for that.
Presumably, Gibraltar would be ideal for that sort of thing, though.
Yeah, it's pretty hot most of the year round. It is. It's you're a gnat's crotch away from the top of Africa, so.
Well, yeah, and the top of Africa is where you would put, that diagram. I don't know if you've seen it of if you wanted to replace all power with solar panels. It's a picture of how much of North Africa you would need to cover, and it's surprisingly small.
Yeah. It's. I mean, we're going to Morocco on holiday in February,
right?
And that's that's their kind of winter, but the average temperature is still in the sort of like 25 degrees. So that's what they call cold.
Yeah.
So pretty good. Just to finish off on this one though, because the real reason for pushing this type of desalination over the other three is that all of the other three need some fairly big infrastructure to do it. Well, they reckon it lends itself quite well to a portable system.
Right.
So if you've got an emergency like a storm or an earthquake, you can get this on the back of a truck. And you can have a desalination plant going fairly quickly. With a generator to generate the electricity, you can get the water cleaning itself. So interesting. But obviously there are desalination in general has come a long way since it started, and it's obviously getting to the stage where people are using it. Island nations are using it quite often now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's essentially all I have on the desalination. So I guess, Richard, we should talk about something that we've been talking off air for the last couple of weeks, but it's David Attenborough's series on BBC One, which is called The Hunt, and a specific thing about it. Which you've got and you've called it. What have you called it? I can't find it now. You've called it Spider with an Idea.
Oh yeah. So it did feature on the show. This is Portia, which is a genus of jumping spider. They are ornophagic, which means they're spiders which eat other spiders. So if you watch that show, you'll see a good illustration. But I'm going to talk about some things that were covered in the show and some things which were not covered in the show. So these spiders, there's 17 species of them described, known to science. They are jumping spiders. They've got eyes all around their head, so they can see 360 degrees.
So tell me about the spider's eyes. Are they a compound eye like a fly or something, or are they something different?
No, they are that. Yeah, they're that design. They're from that same root. Yeah,
but they see that. Well, Portia, the jumping spider, they pointed out quite that it could see 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
But
I couldn't find anything on that actually of what's so special about its eye in that sense. But certainly all jumping spiders have 360 peripheral vision because they're.
I guess they would have to judge distances and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to launch yourself
quite far set back in the head so that they can see all around of them as well. Yeah.
But it's interesting. This is one of the things I was just talking to my other half about. When it had a close up on those 2 eyes at the front, not the peripheral ones, but the eyes, they're very close to ours.
Yeah.
More than I thought they would look like ours. They look like they had an iris and a pupil and.
The ones at the front are the compound, more complex eyes, whereas the ones on the side are much simpler eyes.
Right.
Just to give to add the peripheral vision in, basically.
Right. Interesting. Right. Yeah. Okay. I'll let you go on.
So yeah, they appear to like web building spiders as their main prey item. So that's their niche, which you can see from an evolutionary point of view makes sense. If there's a lot of competition for the prey items of web building spiders, why bother compete? Just eat the web building spider. So that's the niche that they exploit. So in order to do that, it's a dangerous occupation. So they're mimics. They look like leaf litter. Web building spiders, by comparison, have poor eyesight, so they don't.
But a lot of them have a very, very toxic venom.
Yeah. So obviously, you never want to get injured by your prey, do you? In any situation, it's ambush is preferable if you can get away. So in the hunt, you'll see a lot of that a lot of predators are ambush predators because you don't want to get in a one-on-one versus a larger prey item because you're probably not going to win, or even if you do, you're going to end up getting injured frequently.
So it's all about surprise. It's the element of surprise.
And so it looks like a leaf. It acts like a leaf. Its movement is it moves like a leaf moving in the wind, sort of thing. And they can strum the web, which it showed on that on the show, to imitate breeze or trap prey, or even the courtship signals. So there's certain species. The one on the show, I think, was Puerto Rico or Thailand or something like that. But there is 17 different species, and they are spread across the planet. So they're not all from one place. There is species which can imitate the mating calls of other web building species, so it can imitate the male web building spiders.
Now, this seems. I'm going to ask you this anyway. You might not know this, but there was something. There were pains to say that this is an really intelligent spider.
Yeah,
and certainly the way that it was gearing up to do the attack, it did seem like there was an element of weighing up options.
Yeah. It's been looked at in the lab, and it's been proven to be true. Basically, they can formulate a path to their prey item, even if that involves breaking line of sight. So that's something that you don't see in the insect world or the arachnid world. You don't really see that in arthropods, where they can follow a plan through and come up with an idea, but where you break line of sight, it means that you're keeping that in your head. You're keeping the plan in your head. Yeah. So it really does have an idea of an approach and then executes the plan, which is phenomenal for an animal with a brain that size.
And it also seemed to have like a backup strategy when if the first one doesn't go how it assumes it would go. Yeah. It's got another. Oh, well, hang on, I'll try something else.
When they've been studied in the laboratory, they've exhibited some behaviours where the prey item is known to it or its ancestors. So it has an instinctive approach. So it described in that show about the spiders that can spit webs out the front. That they'll never approach them from the front unless they're carrying an egg sac, in which case they will approach from the front. So it's instinct, but also it adapts to the situation.
Because it had a spitting spider where it was like this glue, this sticky glue, mucusy stuff came out. Obviously, you don't want to get entangled with that. But if the female is involved with caring for the egg sac, what comes out of the mouth is it's like a saliva. Yeah. And if something else is coming out of the mouth, it can't spit.
Yeah. But also that its mouth's got the egg sac in, it's tending to the egg sac.
That's
true. So obviously it can't use that weapon while it's preoccupied. But also in the laboratory they've introduced it to either artificial prey items or real prey items which it wouldn't have evolved alongside, and it can come up with strategies to get those as well. So, which shows that it learns that it does have a genuine, the definition of an idea. It does because it can come up with tactical solutions to overcome prey items that it's never encountered before. So, all sorts of web building spiders it can combat, even those that it hasn't evolved alongside, which is just quite incredible when you think about it.
It is an intriguing bit of filmography that. When it was actually doing that, it's incredible to see it, and obviously they've had a hell of a good macro lens on there.
Yeah,
I think you definitely get the impression of thought processes when you were looking at it. You could almost see it going, how am I going to get this one? I've got this is what I've got in my arsenal. Sorry, I just knocked my microphone. This is what I've got in my arsenal. Which one is most suitable for this type of prey? Yeah. And in the end, it went. It did like a Mission Impossible down on a one strand of just above it, and then just pounced on it, which was incredible. But you could actually hear the music in the background, and it just came down a bit at a time.
Yeah,
it was very good, very good.
Well, of course, people would argue that all of that's just instinct, and the spider hasn't had a plan at all. But what's interesting is that, which didn't show you in the show, which is that when they've done it in laboratories with completely mocked up situations, the spider finds solutions. So it learns approach. So it you can introduce arbitrary behavior patterns into a robotic spider. I don't know if it was robotic, but into a prey item, you could create an artificial prey item for it and give it a set of arbitrary behaviors. The spider then learns those and exploits those in future. So it's got the capacity to adapt.
I think it's important though that if it is just instinct, you would expect that you would get a fairly high failure rate if it was instinct, because it's just like a reaction, and but this didn't seem to be. It seemed to have quite a high success rate because it had a lot of things. It was weighing up things.
I think it just depends on how dynamic the environment is. If you've got a non-dynamic environment, so like the cheetah hunting the gazelle, it's the same situation every time. It's predictably the same, isn't it? You don't have to come up with a strategy and a plan. You just execute the instinct. So you stalk and then you run. And actually, this spider, when it does hunt other prey items than spiders, it just goes back to the stalk and run. Basically, it doesn't bother with the whole strategy thing. It just stalks and then runs after it, like normal jumping spiders do for their prey items. So it just adapts to the situation, which is really crazy for something that small.
It is.
Of course, you see, ants adapt to situations, but it's all instinct. It's all by script. It's all built in. So they're not thinking about it.
Actually, the ants were also on last week's episode, and that's
the army.
That was quite impressive. But enough of myrmecology. So you were saying that there was a couple of things that they didn't cover.
Well, that lab stuff, and also about
Right.
their mating process. So they basically, the males very rarely survive courtship, so the females are even more deadly. So and they have a posture, a default posture as well, which I didn't go into on that, where basically they hide the outline of. So you know how the shape of leaf matter, well, kind of the abdomen and stuff gives it away a bit. So when they're not moving, they go into this default position, which obscures that. So they just put their legs, their rearest legs, to obscure the shape of the abdomen, just to sort of obscure the spider outline. It's quite interesting. Of course, that's instinct. But yeah, just the fact that it comes up with a trial and error approach when they put it in the laboratory just seems mad that something that small of a brain could do that.
Yeah,
and I don't think there's other examples in the animal kingdom of anything that small doing that.
Let me just have a look and see if I can find the neuron count of a spider.
I mean, it'll probably vary within.
Jumping spider. Here we go.
Jumping spiders are more intelligent spiders.
Recording of neurons associated with visual perception inside the poppy seed-sized brain of a jumping spider. Excuse me. I thought they were going to give me a. Yeah, I thought they were going to give me a count, because I know Wikipedia has a count of.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
But a list of numbers. Well, hang on. Let's have a look.
It's going to be the high end of arachnids, I would have thought.
All right. I've lost all coordination with my keyboard. Because I use a Mac during the week, and then I come back on a PC, and I'm constantly forgetting that I haven't got a Mac key anymore. No, there's nothing on there about a spider.
No.
But an ant has 250,000.
Yeah.
And so I would expect it's somewhere between a sponge, which has 0, and an ant.
Well, it'll be more than an ant, because of course ants don't really need a lot of brain power because they're working collectively, aren't they? So,
well, a cockroach has 1 million, which is quite amazing.
Yeah, I don't think they're necessarily a reliable measure of intelligence, though, because there's plenty of animals that have a lot more than us, don't they?
It's the cerebral cortex, really. I think more.
Yeah.
But
I don't even know if a spider has that.
Has that? No. I don't know. I used to always think that the neuron count was a good indicator of stuff like this, but I'm not sure it is now, to be honest. But I don't know of anything else.
Yeah, I think it gives you like a rough idea, but yeah, just the fact that it can solve tactical problems just seems incredible.
I'm kicking me thing that they did tonight. I'm a mess. Yeah, but a good. See, this is one of the things that I don't think any of this pay-per-view, Amazon Prime, Netflix stuff will be able to do, is the natural history stuff that the BBC produces, and it can only produce it because of the license fee.
Yeah,
I just don't think there's any. I mean, to be fair, Discovery do co-productions with the BBC, but if they had to come up with that, because they're expensive to make.
Well, it's going to be the case that I think it's going to be anything. It's going to be generally true of anything that doesn't have mass appeal or commercial appeal. So in the States, I think kind of PBS is the only thing where you get these kind of programs, and because it relies on contributions of people, it's nowhere near the quality of the BBC. So I think that's what we'll lose if the BBC does suffer more cutbacks or goes completely. Then you're going to lose out on all this educational type of stuff.
Yeah,
because it's not everyone's cup of tea. But I suppose the argument would be, well, it's not trying to compete with the X Factor. It's trying to educate our young and educate everyone.
Yeah.
That's what it's about, isn't it? There's a value in it that's beyond entertainment, isn't there?
Yeah. So I mean that was one of the remits of the BBC. It was to educate, inform, entertain, educate, and inform. There were the three remits that they had when they first started off, and
Oh well, we've appeared to have lost John, so that was us kind of wrapping up anyway. So we'll call it a day there. Thanks very much for watching. Same time next week. Cheers.
Hello, I'm back. Sorry, bit of a problem there. Hello.
Hello.
The blue screen of death happens again.
All right. Well, I just I wrapped it up while you were gone. So
All right.
but
Okay.
obviously I couldn't terminate it, so it's still live. So
All right. Okay. Okay. Right. We'll go now. See you. Here's the music. Thank you. Bye.